Hello and welcome to Handle with Care, a podcast by GFS, where we explore how delivery, data, digital innovation, and everything else that connects brands to their customers, and what it really takes to handle a business with care. Hi, I'm Sambi, and today's episode is about being wired for success. And our guest is someone who is wired up just right for this. Mara Carmichael is the Sales and Marketing Manager at Testermans, a specialist supplier of electrical test equipment and calibration tools. But, her story starts far away from the world of e-commerce and logistics. Mara, first of all, a big welcome to Handle with Care.
Thank you.
So, from the world of media to pulling pints, and now marketing calibration tools. How did it all come about for you? Please tell us something about yourself.
Well, I had worked in media for years, since leaving college, really. And I'd interned at an advertising agency in London. And then I worked in newspapers, I worked in radio, I worked in an advertising agency. And it was a fast-paced environment. Everybody wanted a piece of you when you work in that kind of industry. So for some reason, my partner and I thought we'd go for the quiet life. So we took on a pub in the middle of nowhere, in a place I'd never even heard of, in the Fens. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fens, but it's a very flat, barren part of England that you might have driven through on your way to Great Yarmouth. That's the only way I can describe it. And that was about eight years ago. Obviously, we fell in love with the place. It's a wonderful place to live. It really is. But of course, during our time running the pub, which was supposed to be a nice, relaxing, chilled job, it wasn't. We had COVID. We had, all the gas price increases. There were so many things that went wrong very, very quickly once COVID had started. We had lockdown, outdoor service only, and then we survived all of that, but at the cost of probably our health and sanity, because working in a pub, a lot of people think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful to run a pub? The reality is very, very different. So I thought, well, I'll go back into what I know, which is sort of marketing, advertising, that kind of thing. And the job at Testermans came up. And that's what I decided to do. I went back in. I thought, I know the industry. What I didn't realise, though, going back, is that, and I should have known because media has always been a fast-moving environment anyway, is that to be out for 7-8 years, a lot of things have changed. So when I left, for example, eCommerce, the real key of e-commerce was making sure that you had a USP, that all your listings for the products that you sell look different, they read differently to everybody else's. People didn't expect it to arrive within 5 minutes of reading your listing. The market has changed so much and so rapidly, and there's so many more platforms. So, let's just say 10 years ago, people had their website and maybe eBay. Amazon was there, but it certainly wasn't the juggernaut that it is now. Most businesses wouldn't be able to survive without Amazon. Facebook Marketplace was more of a case of if you had something to flog, you sold it to your friends and acquaintances, but now there's an actual marketplace that you can sell on. Snapchat was something that kids did, not adults. TikTok, I really can't recall TikTok being a feature in any campaigns that I worked on, in 2017, 2018. I really can't remember TikTok featuring. Insta, again, was something that young people did. And now young people think that Insta is something that old people do. So, the whole landscape's completely changed. But what I did learn working in, obviously, the pub environment is that running your own business side of it. When you run your own business, it's very different working for a company. I used to go to companies and ask them for money to invest in marketing and advertising and communication services. Once you start running your own business, you appreciate more of what it takes to run a small, medium-sized business. So that in turn has meant that the job I do now, I actually do with more care. I understand that I'm not just spending money, on campaigns or whatever. I really need it to work and to return money into the business.
Well, I must say it's a privilege to have you here today, and you've had quite the journey from the newsroom to the bar room, and I look at sales and marketing as the war room. So thank you for sharing that with us. For anyone who doesn't know about Testermans, where you are currently, please tell us a bit about what the business does.
Well, Testermans started originally, Steve, who's the owner of the business, he semi-retired from the motor industry about 20 years ago, and he thought, well, I'm not ready to do that yet. So he picked up a pat tester and a van and started pat testing, as a business. And then he picked up a few more pat testers, all from eBay, and he got another man and another van, and that side of the business grew. And he thought, well, actually, there's some merit in this. So we would buy them from eBay, do them up, sell them on. Then he started making relationships with manufacturers. So he was buying them new, selling them, and eBay was the key platform back then, for the start off as a business. I think it was only 30 the other day, actually. It was eBay's birthday. So it was very much the platform to be on if you were buying and selling new or used goods, to get your foot into that e-commerce market. And that's what he did. And then from that, the business grew and grew, and then he ended up buying, getting a shop, some warehouse premises. That then expanded. And now we sell, obviously, pat testers, because that's where we started, but most testers that you can think of when it comes to electrical equipment. If it needs calibrating or testing, then that's what we do. But we've expanded beyond that. So we're also in gas, so gas analyzers, water, HVAC systems, so heating, ventilation, air conditioning. The list goes on. If it needs testing, we probably sell something that will test it to make sure that it's performing correctly, or power quality analyzers, that kind of thing. The only thing really that we don't test, I guess, would be, my son's doing his mock exams at the moment, so we don't test 15-year-olds for how clever or how not clever they are. I can tell you my 15-year-old is not. But if it needs testing, then we'll sell the tester, or we know a manufacturer that does, so we can get hold of that product for our customers.
Oh, that's fascinating to know these kind of products. A lot of the words you've just said are very alien to someone like me, and I think I might need some testing myself now after this. But I've understood what you sell, but now I'm trying to understand. Someone who goes on eBay and buys your product is obviously not there to just go casually browse. They come with a specific objective in mind. So can you share a bit about who your typical customer is and what makes them unique from like an average shopper or any other kind of shopper?
Yeah. Well, obviously we were born on eBay, if you like, but from eBay came a website, and actually our website and eBay customers are very similar. They are very similar to, Steve of 20 years ago, and the people that I served in the pub. They are hardworking, predominantly sole trading men. They're self-employed, they're electricians, they're sparkies, they're gas technicians, they're plumbers. They are people that need the tools that we sell to earn their living. So they are, from eBay and the website in particular, very, very similar core group of people. Predominantly, our customers are in England, but we don't just sell to customers in England. We are the length and breadth of the UK. And then internationally, anywhere with a similar electrical makeup to the UK, we sell to. So Australia, New Zealand, obviously Ireland, our nearest neighbours, but also big parts of Asia, Middle East, Africa, wherever the British went, if you like. Sometimes the electrical systems that we have were adopted by those countries as well. And so we do have quite a large group of customers in those areas. But the majority of our customers, and I think because we are in the east of England, are in the southeast of England. But obviously our reach is much bigger than that, depending on what the electrical footprint of every country kind of is.
So, Mara, I remember the last time we spoke, you said people remember how you make them feel and whether you showed up when it mattered. So, you having so much experience in people facing roles, how has that shaped how you perceive customer experience the way it is today?
I think because I have served the people that buy from Testermans face to face, I've seen them on a Friday. I've seen them maybe, unfortunately, on a Tuesday afternoon because they haven't got any work. I understand that these are tools that pay their mortgages. If they don't get the tools that they order from us, they could lose job, they can lose the work for the day. And also it's not just their work. So for example, pat testing, I mean, I don't expect everyone to know what pat testing is. Certainly from my point of view, before I worked here, I literally thought it was a sticker on my computer or, a
Well,
sticker
you've
on
busted my
something
myth now.
electrical. I now know it's a lot more than that. For example, some people who work out on the road, they have, say, hand tools, that's portable electrical test equipment that needs testing. They need to make sure it's safe to be used. So if you're a big business, you might call in all your engineers. Say you've got 7 or 8 engineers working for you across the county. You'll call them all into head office because the pat tester's coming in. He's going to do each van all in the morning and all back out to work. If that pat tester needs something to complete that job and has ordered it from us, it hasn't arrived with the pat tester in time, then it's not just him that then loses that work. That's a whole morning for the business who he was supposed to be pat testing, who've called in all their engineers off the road. That's lost as well. And it will still need doing. So another day is going to be lost as well. And then that pat tester, for example, will get the blame. It doesn't matter that he's ordered the right lead or adapter from us, and perhaps it hasn't arrived in time or whatever. He's probably going to lose work. He won't use us again. That business isn't going to use him again, and so on. And because I've seen this happen, actually people in front of me saying, I'm supposed to be at work, because I did used to say, it's not like you to be in the pub at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon, haven't got any work. So I can see the real knock-on effect. Having said that, our customers on other platforms aren't necessarily those type of customers. The majority of our customers are, self-employed, rely on the tools to do the job. They come from website and eBay. But there are other types of customers that we serve. And this was probably the biggest shock when I came back into the industry. Amazon, 8 years ago, I think 4 or 5 days for a parcel to arrive. Fine, that's perfectly acceptable, especially if I'm in a different country. Whereas now the mindset is very much, especially driven, I think, by Amazon. I've ordered it. Why hasn't the doorbell rung yet to say it's here? They've got a real mentality of it needs to arrive. And I don't know whether any of the other platforms are like that, but I do see a lot of that drifting into eBay and drifting into our website. But again, because these are tools that people need for a job, most of the time they will order them well in advance of a job. I'm not saying that all electricians are lastminute.com, because they're not. But of course, they never know what the phone call is going to be, and you can't necessarily always pre-plan for every scenario that's going to come your way.
I can relate to that in some weird way because I could step in like one day in the month at the gym, but like I do 2 dumbbells and I feel like I need to develop these perfect triceps and biceps. That's my kind of expectation, and I feel like that's where delivery expectations are also going, with that whole Amazon kind of next day
Yeah.
urgency that people build around their requirement. But I see from what you're saying, for your customers, there's a lot at stake. It's not like, a birthday present hasn't arrived on time, or your dress for this, your perfect dress for this party hasn't arrived on time. So the stakes of getting that next day delivery is far more higher in your world. So I also know, like you said, your customer base is not just the length and breadth of England. It stretches all the way to, say, Inverness, or further beyond, of course. But how do you manage delivery expectations across such a wide network or wide spectrum of customers?
Uh, with a lot of fun, not really. It is actually quite difficult. What has made it easier, though, is our partnership with GFS, and in particular the Dispatch Cloud. So, in the part when I first came to Testermans, so I've been here a couple of years now. When I first came to Testermans, we were very much juggling lots of different suppliers. Um, so we'd have Royal Mail, DHL, UPS, FedEx, and the list goes on of who we were using, and each of them has their own different portal system. So Royal Mail Click and Drop is probably the one that most of your listeners are familiar with, but also, like I said, DHL, you'd have to log into that, and then you'd have to log into DPD, and you'd have to log in, and everything was done orders would come in. It was quite a manual process to identify where you would send it to, because the rates are vastly different. We just take the UK, for example. It is very expensive to use some couriers to send something up beyond Inverness or to Northern Ireland, which of course is part of the UK. Plus Brexit did make it a little bit more challenging, and because a lot of things didn't happen from 2015 until 2021, 2022, when certain things came in to say you need to have this to be able to ship to Northern Ireland, just make sure it's not going into the EU via that border. It got very, very messy, and it was messy, and there were some rules where you didn't have to declare something if it was under £150. It was a big mess. So one of the first things that I had to do when I came in, and bearing in mind I'm sales and marketing, so shipping isn't really my thing, but it is my thing because it's such a big part of what makes things sell now in the e-commerce world. So whereas before I didn't even think about it, someone else did that. I just had to worry about getting the orders in. But now actually getting the orders out is as important as getting the orders in, because without that, we won't get the sale. Competition is so fierce, especially on platforms like Amazon, that one penny can make the difference as to whether we get the order. A difference of a day on delivery will make the difference. So I've got to be hands-on. So one of the first things that we tried to do was get it all streamlined, and GFS and my account manager there came up with a really good structure. We got some really good rates as well, I have to say. But that aside, it's one portal. I don't have to, if I've got a problem or the customer service team have got a problem, we don't have to ring 7 different couriers. We don't have to go through 7 different systems to remember who we sent something out with. We don't have to go onto all the different platforms, email from different systems, people's tracking numbers and so on. So we manage it through, it's called Dispatch Cloud via GFS. All of our contracts are in there, including Royal Mail. We also have, so we don't have to log into Click and Drop separately. So it's all there for us. It prints our labels. It emails out all of our customers to say, these are your tracking details. Our customers can track it. For international customers, that is brilliant, because with UPS, obviously, they might have duties to pay on arrival. So they get their tracking number, they click on it. It will tell them once it's arrived in the country, it'll tell them what the duties are, and they can pay it there and then. So it's a much simpler system to use. And to be honest, I don't know if we'd still be able to, one, cope with the volume, if we hadn't have implemented that when we did. And two, I certainly wouldn't be looking at expanding in the way that I am looking at expanding the business onto different platforms now, if it wasn't for the fact that we've got GFS in place.
It's really so heartening to hear that, because I'm not saying it as someone who is from GFS, but I've also read on a recent IMRG study that 73% I think of your UK shoppers see fast, flexible delivery as the deciding factor for, in where they buy. And actually our own basket abandonment report shows that about 66% of online shoppers abandon their basket at least once a month if the delivery options don't meet their expectations. So there's that one truth of giving customers the convenience, and there's the truth of how do you absorb the rising costs of delivery. And I think you've found, or you've cracked the code to do that through GFS and Dispatch Cloud, to harmoniously manage your operations and at the same time keep that end customer happy. We've seen that e-commerce has taken a massive leap into the digital world, and where I think if you cut back to a few years ago, delivery was a back office function, content was king, there was no talk about automation, optimization, omni-channel presence. If you think of UK retailers as they stand now, at least 60% of them are selling across 3 or more channels. That could be marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, Temu, which could easily, I think, account for 40% of their online sales. Could you tell us about your channel mix while selling products for Testermans?
Yeah, of course. So at present, we have like the website, eBay and Amazon. Without doubt, Amazon is our biggest platform. It's the one that we sell the most on. It has the biggest audience. I know we've touched on the eBay and website audience. Amazon's audience is a little bit different. Yes, there are, sole traders will go on Amazon, but it also varies. Amazon Business is a big platform for us. So a lot of businesses will use their Amazon Business account to make purchases, and Amazon are very keen on making sure that Amazon Business customers get a bit of an extra discount. They get a bit of more of a guarantee on deliveries. And we do get quite a lot of business from that. But also we get a lot of people who aren't in the industry themselves, but they need something. So for example, an Airbnb host may need to pat test the portable appliances within the home that they are renting out for insurance purposes. So our Amazon customers might be someone like that. They might also be, I don't know, a school caretaker or maintenance person. Their main job is maintaining the school, but as part of that, during half term, they may need to go around and test some of the electrical equipment within and the sockets, because I'm guessing kids tend to put their fingers in sockets and things like that. So, it's not necessarily, Amazon customers aren't necessarily the electrician themselves, but they need the tools to check things, a variety of different things. We also get, and I never understand this, maybe it's because I'm a girl, DIYers and hobbyists on Amazon who, I don't know, let's just say they're working on their electrical train set in their garden shed or something, and they can't find where there's a break in the electric line, and they'll buy a volt stick or similar to find that out. So we get a lot of that on Amazon. So whereas on eBay and on the website, it is a need, sometimes on Amazon, it's just a want. Whereas on Amazon, it doesn't matter whether it's a want or a need, they want instant delivery, whereas on the other two platforms, not so much. So once we also looked at going on DIY.com, which is a B&Q website. So before I went with GFS, I was looking at going on DIY.com. So it's a marketplace predominantly run by B&Q. It's on the Markle system. But we couldn't handle adding another platform because we weren't set up to be able to manage that, to be able to introduce a new platform. we've worked with GFS now for just over a year. And I know that there's a business in Temu. I know there is. It's such a massive platform at the moment, and it's growing at a rate of knots. People are starting to realise that it's not all coming in from China. There are UK traders. I mean, over the summer, all of my plant pots and garden things came from Temu, and they were all from UK-based businesses. If it wasn't for GFS and the fact that I'd spotted the fact that we can collaborate with them, link up with them via the GFS system, we wouldn't be about to launch on Temu. So I've got some quite big hopes for Temu. I don't think
you heard it first on the podcast. I'm so glad to know you're launching in Temu, and GFS is able to support you with that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have even looked at it if it wasn't for the fact that it's there as an option already, because it shouldn't make too much difference to us in-house. Hopefully it'll mean more orders, but it's been a particularly difficult year anyway. eBay, we've started to see a decline in what we're getting from eBay because they've got such fierce competition, obviously from Amazon, but for things like Vinted, and there's the Etsy, there's a number of other sites as well. They've got a lot of competition at eBay. And Temu, of course. So we need to try Temu, and that's where we're going. It's not just Temu though. As I was flicking through, there are a couple of others, and one of them, funnily enough, is the B&Q DIY.com. And I thought, if only I knew this last year, we could have launched it properly. For now, though, I've got enough in my hands launching on Temu without launching on too many others. But there is another plan to go with someone that, again, and I'll blame GFS for this. I was on a webinar probably about 6 months ago for TikTok. It was a TikTok webinar.
Oh yes, the TikTok shop one. Yes.
Yeah, my account manager invited me to watch it, and I watched it, and I thought, there's no way we can do that, because I thought, I'm going to have to get a green room. I'm going to have to get a presenter. I'm going to have to do all this content. I'm pat test qualified now. I'm no electrician. I know what the red wire goes in the red hole and the black wire goes in the black hole. That really is the extent of my knowledge. So how am I going to create all this content and that kind of thing? But it looked so good. And I know it's an audience that we could reach. And because my boss, like I said, he started this business 20 years ago after he'd semi-retired. So that will give you an indication of his age range. He's always watching stuff on TikTok, whereas in my mind, I thought it was only kids that TikTok. And I was thinking a lot of apprentices, because in this industry, it's an industry that you'll always need apprentices in. I thought that's how we'd reach them. But actually, TikTok turns out it's not just young people on it. It's everybody. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought we are missing out on a massive audience. I keep hearing people, especially from some of my self-employed friends who've got their own businesses, how much they make from TikTok. And I really couldn't get my head around it. But then I spotted that as well as somebody that GFS integrates with. So I thought, I'm going to revisit that. So I revisited it. And I thought, I'm going to need someone young to come in. So I've taken on an apprentice myself. She's currently training. Yeah, she's currently training on it, and I'm going to make her the TikTok guru. She's going to launch this shop for me, help me find the content. Apparently, there's things like influencers, content creators that we can team up with. Way over my head here, but I know how to make it happen should we get the sales in, so that's fine. And now, like I said, I've got somebody in that can help me make that a reality. So that's our big project for the new year. So we're mid-Temu launching. That will be done by the end of the year. And then early next year, we'll be launching on the TikTok shop, which I never thought I'd say in a million years.
I am very tempted to get you to commit to a part 2 of this episode, so we can talk about, once your posts launch with Temu and TikTok shop, we can probably see some of the videos and what you've been doing with them. And I feel like, Insta was the thing that Gen Z and the younger generations did, and we drove them out of there by getting the older generations there. But I think TikTok is far more locked down, where we'll
Mhm.
all be there. But I think unless something new launches by the time we're speaking next, I think we've got all the generations locked there. So no escaping that one.
Yeah.
But let's talk about partnerships, Mara, because I know you've been working very closely with GFS to manage multi-carrier delivery, right from, as you said, custom updates to automation to the entire carrier mix spectrum. I want to understand from you. Uh, please help us. Please describe that relationship for all of us to understand how that works for you.
Well, I mean, I suppose if I start with my relationship with the account manager, Saskia, we probably have a catch up every 3 or 4 months, formally, and we tend to share. Well, Saskia shares with me, some of the things that some of our other customers are seeing success with. So, she, like I said, she's the one that invited me to that original TikTok webinar. But also, she'll send me really useful information because it's very hard when you're in it. Even though I'm in e-commerce, so sometimes it's like data paralysis. So I've got so much data, I don't know what to do with it. So she'll map it out in very clear terms for me. I know how many parcels I've sent where. I know who I've sent them with. It really helps me identify where we might be able to maybe switch internally some of the stuff that we send with one carrier to another. Also allows me to properly put options on to the various platforms. So for sometimes on the website, we'll get feedback from customers, too many options. Why is there different, why is there so many different prices? I just want to know, are you going to send it to me in a flat fee? So we'll make adjustments on there. On something like Amazon, we've tried Amazon Prime before. It's not for us. It's not right for us. So we do charge shipping on Amazon. By having that relationship with Saskia, I can identify where we might be able to offer slightly reduced price shipping to some areas in the UK, so I can have a look at, I get that data and it helps me make informed decisions about what shipping options I then roll out to my customers. One of the things that I will be doing at some point is using Temu to establish whether or not we should be using more, click and drop locations. So, the shop locations to pick up items. Because of the majority of what we sell is quite expensive, people want it delivered to their home because they're self-employed. So usually, they don't have an office. And if they're ordering an essential tool, then they physically want it delivered at their front door. Also, we do calibrations, so we pick up somebody's tool from them, bring it to our calibration centre, repair it, service it, and then we take it back to them and physically put it back in their hands. So that's what we use GFS for as well. Sambi, I've gone off on a tangent. I can't remember where I was going with it. Do we
No,
start
that's
that again?
that's perfect because we've discussed so much. But I think the main thing was, I think what you're still getting at is understanding and describing your partnership with GFS through your account manager, and how there's that support function from GFS, not just for your multi-carrier management, but also how your account manager comes and plays a role in sort of
Yeah.
helping you refresh options every few months when you sort of have a review.
Yes, so we'll go from that bit if that's all right. Because, I remember
Yes,
what
of
I was
course.
trying to say now. Thank you. So, with us going with Temu, I'm interested in seeing what Temu customers will want. And I know that I can work quite closely with Saskia on establishing, what are the trends? What are the customers choosing? How do they want their products to get to them? How quickly can they get them? And that would be really good. But beyond that, Saskia is the account manager. I'm the sales marketing manager. the boys in the dispatch team, they can also get in touch with either Saskia directly or with the technical team. So sometimes something will happen like manifesting. I don't understand what manifesting is, but sometimes the manifest doesn't happen. And the team, can get in touch directly with GFS, with the customer service team, with the technical team, and get it sorted between them. It's not just they do one thing. Mara and Saskia get together every 3 months and tell us what to do. They're very much involved in it as well. And, we get some good feedback from the customer service team too. If a parcel, for example, is going to be delayed, we get notified pretty much, as soon as they know. If it hasn't been delivered, we get notified. The communication is really strong to everybody that needs to know. The customer service team literally, if something is happening, if DHL have attempted a delivery and they weren't in, we know within minutes that it's been a failed delivery attempt, and we can then try and help the customer with getting that rearranged. So it's really good that everybody involved in the whole process has contact with somebody at GFS that can help them.
We both have seen how delivery reliability now ranks as the top driver for repeat business, no matter what the stakes are for the shopper at the end of this, on the other end of the screen. With those customer expectations only going higher up, how do you see the delivery story for Testermans in the coming, the coming year or the coming months? And how do you see that partnership with GFS play a role in making that growth in terms of operations and customer expectations sustain?
I think for us as a business, then we need to be a bit tighter on, especially as we expand across platforms, is stock levels, because we're not drop shippers. We carry our own stock and we update every platform individually. And the reason we do that is, and maybe it's because I'm a bit old school, but I do find that all the platforms are a little bit like children. They all want their own individual attention. You've got to nurture each one. You've got to love each listing on each different platform. They've all got to read differently, follow different structures and everything else, and, have their ego stroked. And each platform, therefore, because it's treated individually, we put stock numbers in. But if I sell 100 1AC Fluke Volt sticks on Amazon, then I have to try and backtrack onto the other two and remove them from stock, because otherwise eBay customers think we've got more stock than we have. So moving forward next year, we need to try and work out a way of making sure that stock levels, especially with the introduction of Temu and then with TikTok, that we can make sure that we're giving customers a really, as best we can, realistic expectation when it comes to when they can get their product. So if it's out of stock, it's out of stock, that we can tell them it will be back in stock by XYZ, and we can get it to you by Y. So definitely need GFS to help us with that. They already do that, but also giving people different options. So we haven't tapped into, the lockers, the DPD lockers or the DHL pickup sites, that kind of thing. There's been some massive changes going on with Royal Mail and Parcel Force as well. Obviously, Every is now part of DHL, so lots of changes there. But the one thing that I need to remain the same is the fact that I just have one system that I need to go into, that it will make it happen. And everything else really is in the background, things that I need to do to make sure that I'm holding up my end of the bargain. GFS does the kind of in between us and the delivery partners, and whatever they're doing, whoever they're teaming up with, they just carry on.
Perfect. So we're tapering towards the end portions of our podcast, and at this point, I like to take a slightly lighter tone. So it's called Handle with Care, the Lighter Side. So I want to understand, Mara, in your time at, so far at Testermans, you must have had many memorable customer moments over the years. What is the most unusual or funny experience you've had, I don't know, maybe with a customer or an order?
I don't think so much with customers. I mean, I'm not. It's quite a serious business sometimes,
Yes.
and to the items that we sell. Uh, but we have, there's quite a few. There have been typos. You've got to remember some of these listings have been on, especially on eBay. Like I said, I think it's their 30th birthday this year. Um, and that's where we started. So some of our listings are quite old. So there are some typos, maybe older words. So when young people come in, one of my favourites is quibble. What's a quibble? I know what a quibble is. I've got one under my chin, but what's a quibble? It's not a word that anyone under the age of 40 uses. Spelling mistakes. We do annual testing. I won't tell you what that translates to. And then it doesn't matter sometimes how many times you can tell someone something, show them something, they will always ask the question. I mean, we internally will, every customer question that comes in, we read and we act, because if one customer is going to ask it, so is everyone else. But it never ceases to amaze me. Things like, I'll have a listing that says 32 amp adapter. Do not order if you need a 16. How many emails we will get in saying, will this fit 16? No, it won't. But it doesn't matter. You've got to keep repeating it and repeating it. But yeah, it's quite, I suppose, in some ways, it is a serious job, because the outcome of some of the stuff that we do is actually quite serious. I mean, we've got a light-hearted look at it, but it just tends to be maybe a bit of difference in the terminology and some of the words that we might use. Have a good chuckle at AI as well, I've got to be honest, because obviously I worked in an industry without it for so long, that when I read things like analyzer, and because everything's got a Z when it comes to AI, and I'm like, no, please stop it. It really winds me up.
I I think after this, there's going to be a sudden surge in Google searches for what is a quibble. So I think Google is going to be surprised. Where's this buzzword come from? Next thing you know, Gen Z is using it, and it's the new 6'7" or 6'9" that they're going to say and use at school.
Six seven quibble.
That's it. That's it. I think we've got a new term. So finally, I
Mm-hmm.
think let's go to our signature question,
Mm-hmm.
and you can take some time to think about it. What is the one thing you would always, always handle with care?
I think for us here, it's kind of reputation stroke trust. Once people have have placed their order with us, they trust us. It doesn't matter what platform it's on. They trust us to dispatch it as we said we would, for it to go out as we've told them it will, to be delivered when we've told them it will be delivered, uh, and that at the end of the day, it does what we said at the beginning. And at any point, if any of that falls over, it will always come back to, it doesn't matter if there was an accident on the M1, or the weather's really bad up in Glasgow, which is why you couldn't go any further north. If something happens that breaks that trust, it's very hard to then get that back. The good thing is a lot of customers, they're reasonable. Like I said, the majority of these people are everyday guys. They are just trying to earn a living, the same as you and me. So actually, because we get the communication quite well back from, we know something's gone wrong, so we can preempt that, contact the customer. It kind of helps with that journey, so we can repair it before it gets hurt too much. Because I do think trust is one of those things that once it's gone, it's very, very difficult to get back. And most of the time you won't get it back, but you can certainly make an attempt. And if you pull it off, if things happen and the customer's accepting and everything else, then that leads to repeat business, word of mouth, which is still a firm believer in, is just as good as any other USP that a e-commerce site can give. So yeah, for me, extra care with the trust and the reputation of Testermans.
I've lost you there.
Okay, you're back.
Oh, I love what you've just said, because it's a little reminder that behind every parcel and every delivery, there's always, always, always a human story. Mara, thank you so much for joining us today. Your journey shows us that whether it's media, marketing, or multi-channel retail, the secret to success is still always the same: connection, consistency, and care. And thank you to everyone who's listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. And stay tuned for more conversations that unpack the human side of delivery and the economics behind the experience. Until next time, I'm Sambi, and this is Handled with Care.